I think I'm really lucky that after this long in the same job, it's really not the same job because I've had so many different roles within it. It's not as simple as the uniform side and the crime group side. You know, you've got covert sides, you've got crash investigation units, you've got intelligence units, you've got the opportunity that when you work hard to have that recognised and go through promotion boards. When you've got a really good team, work, no matter what the pressures are, can still be really enjoyable, get an awful lot of professional pride, especially when I watch some of my teams and some of the great results they have.
It's just been really inspiring to hear you talk about the realities of being a police officer.
From a woman that was a single parent, was trying to work early, late nights, it was difficult, but it is really supportive. There is room for everybody. I think the most scared I've ever been, he just looked me dead in the eye and he said, "Take one step towards me and I will just break your nose." And so it was at that point when I then called for backup.
Welcome to More Than the Badge, a Kent Police podcast. My name is Samantha Matthews. I'm the Child Centre Policing Manager for Kent Police and I'll be your host today. Today's guest is Detective Chief Inspector Stefanie Earl. Stefanie has worked for Kent Police for 28 years. Welcome to the podcast, Stefanie.
Thank you very much.
So the question we must ask to start things off, what inspired you to become a police officer?
Well, I come from a family of police officers, I would say. My dad was a police officer, my stepmother's a police officer, retired now, both of them. Had two uncles that were police officers. So I think for me it was just something. I just remember being a kid and my dad was a police officer, and I remember thinking that was like really cool, and like telling all my friends at school that my dad was a police officer. So I think when it got to the time when I was leaving school, I wasn't interested in university. I'd done my A-levels and it was a bit like, what career path am I going to go down? And I think from my dad and from my stepmother, because my dad was the uniform side and then my stepmother was the child protection side, it gave quite a good overview of what the police could offer. I think also because there's promotion opportunities and just the fact that you're interacting with the public, and I quite like to talk, so for me I think it was just a sort of natural progression really, because I'd grown up with it.
I mean, it is really important, I think, for us to see female role models within the police as well. So just going back to the start of your policing career up to now, so how does your time in local policing compare to your detective work?
Do you know what? When I joined, it was reasonably rare to have women in the force. I'm also very small. I'm 5'1" if I stand really straight. And I was only 19. So I think when I joined, it was a little bit overwhelming because I was the only woman in a class of men. But do you know what? I can honestly say I never really noticed that I was a woman, because you get embraced into the fold. You very much look after each other. And I think, excuse me, especially when I was on patrol with all the male officers, different ages, etc., I always found them to be really quite protective until they realised I was quite feisty and could generally look after myself. So I think certainly, local policing, uniform, you really do look after each other. You're responsible for each other. And I really, really felt that. And then I think moving into the detective world, again, I never noticed any difference. I've always been treated exactly the same as my male colleagues, if I'm honest. And I think my whole career, I've never felt, generally, as a generalisation through my career, nothing but supported, no matter whether it's in a uniform role or a crime investigation role.
Almost sounds like a family.
Yeah, no, I definitely think so. I always say, like, to my teams now, we spend a lot of time at work, and we do spend a lot of time at work. So you've got to try and make the best of it and enjoy it as much as you can. And I think when you've got a really good team, work, no matter what the pressures are, can still be really enjoyable, get an awful lot of professional pride, especially when I watch some of my teams and some of the great results they have. And yeah, you do look after each other. And I think that's an important way to be when you're working early, late nights, sometimes 14-hour days, longer sometimes. Yeah, we look after each other.
So how has your career evolved over time?
Well, as I said, I've been in the organisation a long time. It's the only career I've known, to be honest. So I joined local policing. I actually really enjoyed that. I had a bit of a tough start because when I was within my probation, so within the 2 years, I was diagnosed with epilepsy, and that was a really hard time for me because, of course, I lost my driving licence for a year. But what I would say, I was really lucky. The superintendent at the time was just awesome at a time when maybe disabilities weren't recognised as much as they are now. He was just excellent, and I think I've got his support to thank for the fact that here I am now, 27 years later. So yeah, that was a little bump in the road with my probation. But then I moved into, we called it TAC team, which is where you normally see the chaps in the vans, basically, like knocking down doors, etc. I really enjoyed that. That was good to go and do different operations and things like that. And then I went, it must be about 4 or 5 years in by now. And I remember I got sent to an incident and a lady headbutted me to the point my teeth went through my bottom lip. And I just remember thinking, oh, do you know what? I think it's time for a change. And that was how I sort of thought. And I'm one of these weird people that loves paperwork. I love a bit of paperwork. I can't deny it.
Hot fast fan?
Yes. Yeah. So I don't mind a bit of paperwork. So I then went into the crime group. I found that I really enjoyed it. I realised I was excellent at time management and case file completion. So that's how I became a detective. I think my promotion has been really organic. I've never been ambitious at all. So when I joined the organisation, I never thought I want to get promoted. So I think for me, it was just, I got to the point as a detective where I thought, you know what, I think I could do the next rank now. So that's when I got promoted and I got posted up to North Kent because I wanted the quicker pace of life, and like the proximity to London gave me that. And then I fell pregnant. What was I? 36 when I had my son. And so at that point I went part-time because I thought that was my career. I thought I'm going to be a part-time officer, look after my son. And then I had a lot of miscarriages, which hugely affected me. And then my husband left. And so I was then left as a part-time sergeant with a 2-year-old child. And I was a bit like, crikey. And I think at that point I could either have given up and accepted what was happening to me. And instead I thought, right, I'm going to focus on my son, focus on work, because the two things are what gave me joy in different ways. They gave me joy and made me feel like a person again. I got my inspector's exam. I went on to get promoted, which was great, and I felt really, really, that's probably the best I felt in my career, that ability to get over really horrific things in my personal life to then get promoted and be able to provide a really stable life for my son. And I think maybe because I stayed a sergeant for such a long time within the crime group, when I took the step up to being an inspector, I found it fine. I could manage it. I was like, okay, this is what I was doing anyway, just on a bigger level, I can manage this. So I didn't stay an inspector for very long because I thought, right, I think I'm ready for the chief inspector role now. And I'll be honest with that was a difference. That took me a good 6 months of thinking, oh my goodness, it's much bigger. It's much more accountability. And I think it's a good thing to be honest and say, you don't walk into a job straight away and know what you're doing. And I didn't. It took me 6 months to work out exactly the expectations. And now I love it again. And I think I'm really lucky that after this long in the same job, it's really not the same job because I've had so many different roles within it. I still love my job. Yeah. Technically I should be able to retire in 2-3 years time, but they're not going to get rid of me. I'm staying for a little bit longer. So I just feel really lucky to be in this position.
That leads me on really nicely actually to the next question, because I think it's fair to say in policing as a career, it naturally presents officers with stressful situations, quite a lot of tension.
Yeah.
So in terms of well-being, how do you manage the more emotional parts of your job?
Well, I'm going to be honest with that one. I sometimes struggle with the emotional part. I I've especially noticed, I think, since becoming a mum, the emotional side, I can sometimes absorb maybe more than I would choose to. But on the other hand, I think if I can't show empathy, if I can't show that emotion to the people that I'm dealing with, that would just make me a robot. So, there's a couple of times that really stick in my head, and generally it's around death, and it's because you associate maybe the person that's died with one of your own family members, the age, whatever it might be. And yeah, I might tear up. And do you know what? I think that's okay, because for me, this might be my job that I'm going out to, but this is somebody's life. After I leave, it's going to impact upon them for an awful long time. And there are those that stick with me. And you know what? I think that's okay.
Mm. No, and actually, I completely agree. I think it's actually really powerful and important to show that we're human.
Yeah,
and we're
very
relatable.
much. Yeah.
No, I couldn't agree more. And you mentioned that some things have stuck with you. So actually, in terms of any kind of standout moments in your career, is there any one moment that's particularly stuck with you?
Oh, there's a few, to be honest. I think if I can touch on the two, because they're quite a big difference, because the first one, I'm talking 27 years ago. So literally in the first 2 weeks of my service. So before I even was allowed to wear a uniform, it's just when you go out with the proper police officers, just to understand what it's like. And there was a sudden death of a baby. And that shook me. I was 19. I'd never seen a home in that level of disarray, but the palpable grief of those parents just absolutely stuck with me. And seeing this baby, even now I can feel it, was just horrific. And to this day, I dread anything around a child being hurt, because it really impacts upon me. So that is definitely one that did affect me. It did stick with me, but I think it also taught me that I don't really care if you live in £1 million mansion or in a bedsit. The love that I saw from parents to a child, that doesn't have a financial equation. And I think that was a really important lesson for me to learn, who comes from a bit of a mixed background, because I've got separated parents. So that was a powerful lesson, I would say, for me as a teenager to learn that. And then I think the other one that's really stuck with me is only a few years ago now, when I was a detective inspector, and it was a suicide. And the reason it really struck me was because the man who was like, you're perfectly normal, working class, everyday husband, father. He had new shoes on, so he'd put his brand new shoes on, a really nice outfit. He had a rucksack with literally all his goodbye letters, all his bank accounts, all the passwords, all of those things. And I just remember that moment, just looking at him, just that absolute sadness. So when I went to see, obviously, his wife and children, and maintained a good relationship with them for a long time after, you just see that ripple effect. So I never take for granted that this might be my job, but it always brings it home to me when you're talking to those families, that I've got a responsibility just to do my very best, to be empathetic, to listen to them, to try and not share their grief, but just to maybe make it a little bit easier for them. So I say there's lots of moments that stand out, but those two, I think, are the ones that haunt me the most, if I'm honest.
And it sounds like that shaped you in terms of how you've gone forward in your career, not just as an officer, but as a manager?
Yeah, I think so. I think for me, people are always the most important thing. I think no matter what, if you treat people with some respect and with some kindness, don't get me wrong, you're not always going to agree, and that's absolutely fine. But if we just show that respect to people, and say whether that's the public, whether it's my officers, I just think that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to be an example to my team.
Yeah. I think what's come across quite strongly for me there as well is exactly that. It's teamwork, and that plays a vital part in successful police work, I think. So would you say to that end that camaraderie is actually a really important part to play, and what do you think that's like in Kent Police?
Strong camaraderie to me is when you're a team. So you lean on each other, as in, last week you might have had a really horrific week. So the week after, you want other people to step up and share the load. So I would say in my career, I say especially on local police in uniform, camaraderie is really strong. It's a really strong, enjoyable place to work as a whole, taking out some of the incidents that are dealt with. But, they have strong team ethos. From the departments that I've been through, which, I've worked as a sergeant and an inspector in the vulnerability department. Again, I found the ethos, the culture, the support within there was always really, really good. And when I was the DI down at Detective Inspector at Thanet, the VIC team down there were amazing. Just watching them all pull together because they knew what my expectations were. And now that I have more teams, bigger teams as the Detective Chief Inspector, nothing makes me prouder than when I hear really good work of what the officers have done, going above and beyond, sometimes working all the way through the night to make sure that they can get, the person dealt with and charged. I love it when, at an award ceremony last night, there was a few letters from the members of the public just saying what a great job some of my officers had done. And that's not me, that's my officers that have done that, and it just makes me really, really proud of them, really proud of them.
But you do set the tone, and it sounds like it's that balance of support and professional challenge as well that drives them.
Yeah, no, 100%. I understand that I'm there to lead the team very much, and I celebrate their successes, and I want them to know, when things are done really well. But I think I've probably got enough respect for my team that I'm also able to say, hang on, I need a little bit more in this area. And you know what? I think because I've always put people first, what my team give me, honestly, it's excellent. I really couldn't ask for more. And I think for my view as a leader, a supervisor in Kent Police, that is generally the culture I try and harvest, because it works for everybody.
Yeah, no, fantastic. So policing as such a visible part of society, we're often in the public eye, we're in the news. Do you ever face or do you ever hear of any misconceptions about policing that you would want to challenge, and how do you manage those?
All the time, literally all the time. Like when I joined back in 1996 as a mere teenager, I would tell everybody I was a police officer. I was really, really proud. And then I think as we've gone through some really difficult times in policing, really challenging times, and I would sometimes not want to say what my job was, because you have that step back, you have that reaction. And whereas now I think, no, do you know what? We do a really good job. We do have challenging circumstances. We do quite often have unfair media, because what the public hear are all those negative stories in the press, because they're the ones that are interesting, aren't they? They're the one that generate gossip. You don't hear about the officers that are literally, working 16-hour days, working absolutely tirelessly to do their very best to try and get the best results. And I appreciate that sometimes doesn't happen. And, often we get frustrated with that too. We want to do the right thing. So I think it's that misconception that we're all a little bit like that, and we, none of us really care. And that is so far from the truth. And I think it's this misconception that I'm constantly on duty, constantly looking for wrongdoing. And I'm like, I'm just a person. I'm a person, I'm a mum, I'm a girlfriend. Yes, I'm a police officer, but I am just a person.
We spoke about well-being earlier, and how you manage stress within the job. Would you feel comfortable sharing with us what has been your scariest moment, or a moment where you've realised the reality of the risks sometimes associated with policing?
So my latter part of my career, which has obviously been as in the crime side, I have a layer of protection from my uniformed colleagues, and I never take that for granted, because I've got some good friends that are still frontline. But there was, I think the most scared I've ever been was when I was doing acting sergeant on local policing, and we were called to a domestic incident. And when we got there, the female was quite badly beaten, and the offender was just sat in the kitchen on a chair with his feet up. So really, really casual, really, really calm. And I'm normally quite good at talking out of situations. So I was going through the spiel of like, you know, come on, this isn't the first time you've been here. You're going to have to come with me. And he just looked me dead in the eye and he said, take one step towards me and I will just break your nose. And I just thought, will he or won't he? I thought, no, I will test this. So I took another step forward and he went, yep, that's it, almost close enough. And there was just that look in the eye. He wasn't aggressive. He was so cold that I just thought, I know he will. And so it was at that point when I then called for backup to get more resources there, because I knew he was going to assault me. So that is probably the scariest time, because it was so non-aggressive, so calculated, that I thought, I won't win here.
It was almost opposite to what you were expecting.
100%. I can deal with aggression.
Yeah.
Aggression, I know how to deal with that. But that kind of trying to work out, am I safe, am I not? And I was like, do you know what? I'm not safe here. So yeah, I had to call for some colleagues to come and help me. And do you know what? There's nothing wrong with that either, because at the end of the day, we all want to go home to our families.
Exactly there. Absolutely right thing to do. And you know, that's just a little part of the bravery, I think, that police officers like yourself have to, you know, inhabit. And you know, we're grateful that you do so. So let's move away from some of the serious questions just for a moment. I'm going to go a bit off the cuff, and ask you some quick fire questions about you as Stefanie the person.
Oh, crikey.
Something a bit different there. So question 1, what is your go-to snack whilst on shift?
I'm a protein bar girl or a Monster Energy. Zero, of course.
Okay.
But yeah, I know that they're not the best, but I can't help myself.
That's fine. If you were a superhero, what would your superpower be?
You see, I sometimes change my mind about this, but I really think I'd just like to be able to fly.
Yeah?
Yeah, when I was a kid, like, Wonder Woman was always, like, quite awesome. And I think, yeah, I just want to be able to fly.
She's a bit of a role model for you.
Oh, 100%. Honestly, I thought she was amazing. I remember I used to dance around the living room with, like, a pretend crown on my head saying Wonder Woman.
Why do you have to stop doing that now?
Who said I did?
Well, that makes sense. So if you could choose any celebrity to join you on a shift, who would it be?
Oh, it's Kylie. Always Kylie.
Kylie Minogue.
Yeah.
I feel like I should make some sort of really bad pun about how you should be so lucky.
Oh, well, I would be lucky.
So why Kylie?
Do you know what? I think she was the era of my growing up. It was Neighbours in their heyday with like Scott and Charlene. And then she moved on and like started doing her little quirky records. And I think, I'm pretty sure I Should Be So Lucky was the second single I bought back when they were, what are they even called? Vinyl. Crikey, showing my age. And I think ever since there, I just really like her. And she's a little person as well. Yep. So I was like, oh, she's the same height as me. So I could actually have a eye-to-eye conversation for probably the first time in my life. And yeah, I went to see her in concert. And yeah, here I am at 47 and I still think she's great. So
fantastic. And the last one for the off-the-cuff section. So what's one thing that you wish the public really knew about the role of a police officer?
I wish they knew how much we actually care and how much we do want to help them. And in the absolute main, we really, really try. And I know we don't always get it right, but that isn't through want of trying. So I think I would want them to know how proud I am to be a police officer, that I always want to do my best. And I would say 99.9% of the officers that I've come across are like that. So I think I wish they could see the really strong work ethos, the absolute tenacity to still answer their calls, to still get there. So yeah, I think that's what I wish they could see that.
Brilliant. Well, we are on to our last question. I have to say, actually, just listening to you, I think your honesty is really refreshing.
Thank you.
And I do think that, one of the greatest benefits of working in the police is the variety of life experience, the variety of people and communities that you get to know, kind of the good, the bad, everything in between.
100%.
And it clearly helps develop you as a rounded human being who just cares about people. We're just humans who care about other humans at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So to that end, the other question we absolutely have to ask you before you leave is, what advice would you give to someone who's thinking about a career in policing?
Yeah, I think thinking about a career in policing, I would say don't look narrow, as in people think of the police as the people in the uniform that turn up to car accidents or, to a robbery or something like that. And yes, to me, that is an absolutely integral part of being able to just converse and think on your feet and be able to react to different situations. But I would say if you've got good people skills, it's a great career, because you go in at that kind of level, and obviously we have the IF candidates now, which is the crime group side, but there is just a wealth of roles that you could do. It's not as simple as the uniform side and the crime group side. You've got covert sides, you've got crash investigation units, you've got intelligence units, you've got the opportunity that when you work hard to have that recognised and go through promotion boards. So for me, in my career, I've had times when I haven't been happy, and I think that's normal. There's times when you haven't been happy, but the brilliant thing is you can move. You can get a role that you love, and then you find your niche or something that you're really, really excellent at. And I think that is what I would say. It's a really big spectrum out there. There is probably roles in the police you didn't even know existed that might be right up your street. And I think also probably getting to this age now and this is probably more female orientated, is don't let the fact that you've got kids make you think you can't do it. And the reason I say that is from a woman that was a single parent, was trying to work early, late nights. It was difficult. But when you get it right with the balance with the organisation, it is really supportive. There is room for everybody. And so I think sometimes when I've spoken to some of my officers that are like, I can't get promoted because I've got kids, and I'm like, no, they're not a preclusion to any of that. So I just wanted to give a little bit of a shout out to the mums.
Perfect. Well, that just leaves me to say thank you, Stefanie, for your time and reflection today. It's just been really inspiring to hear you talk about the realities of being a police officer, your journey into becoming a detective. It's become really clear that you feel passionately there are many routes into policing and many career paths once you're into policing. We just really appreciate you highlighting that because it's so true.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, follow us on Instagram, X, Facebook and LinkedIn, where we'll be posting previews of our upcoming episodes. And don't forget you can watch this episode by subscribing to our YouTube channel and find out more about the variety of career opportunities available by searching Kent Police Careers. See you soon. Bye.